topic that I will start with is NHG, and the NHG is a national mortgage guarantee that is there for this year until the 435,000 euros. If the purchase price is more than 435,000 euros this year, NHG isn't possible anymore. Because it's higher than the limit. Next year, they will say, okay, we will increase the limit and increase it to 450,000 euros as a purchase price. This year, it's all about the purchase price and all about when are you going to receive the keys at the notary. So if you already make an offer this year and it will be above the 435,000 euros, but within the limit of 450,000 euros, you will go to the notary in 2025. It is already possible to apply with the NHG because the transfer date is very important in this. Good to understand also is that if you're going to apply for the mortgage and you need to have a final agreement from the mortgage provider, it's not possible to get it this year. From the end of 2024, already possible to make an offer with this limit, but we can only apply for the mortgage in December to get the NHG. Then the bank can already approve, but they are not sharing the final offer with you until the 2nd of January, because the 1st of January, nobody at the bank is working, of course. It's still a holiday day. And then with the NHG, you do have the mortgage guarantee, so kind of a safety net, which is a benefit for you because the interest rate is the lowest that you can get for now. That is still the same this year as next year, but for now you need to pay 0.6% NHG fee once from the start. So with getting the keys at the notary, this year it is the 0.6. Next year they will decrease it to 0.4%, and that's based on your mortgage, not the purchase price. So that's important. Then something that isn't changed from this year to next year is the energy efficient improvements, which is still possible with the NHG. 6% based on the purchase price. So for now, 477 based on the 100%, which is 450,000 euros. But okay, it increased in numbers because the NHG limit increased. So that is a thing that is a topic for tonight. But another topic which is probably important for you as well is the transfer tax exception. The age is still the same, so your age needs to be within 18 years and until 35. If you're already 35, then it's not possible to not pay the transfer tax. If you are a first-time buyer, of course, so it's just an exception that you can use once. And first-time buyer, I mean, it needs to be your first home or your priority home. For this year, the limit is 510,000 euros. If you extend it to a higher amount as a purchase price or the purchase price, then you need to go to the notary next year again with the limit for 525,000 euros. So it is increased with 15,000 euros next year. So that is a change for next year, which is a good one. Then there is a donation in a tax-free zone. This is important to know. This is only a donation that is coming from your parents, and the money is coming from the Netherlands. So probably if you are an expat and you're getting a donation from your parents, it's not from the Netherlands, and the tax rules of the money or the country where the money is coming from are counting. So this is only donation from the Netherlands, and it is increased a bit, and you see it is 32,000 euros and a bit next year instead of 31 and a bit this year. So not a big change, but okay, every small detail will help. And then your loan capacity, maybe even is the most important one that is or isn't going to change. And every calendar year, they are making new calculations because they say we have inflation in the Netherlands based on a certain income. You can spend a certain amount in your mortgage. And that's depending on what are the expenses of your total life, of course. So every calendar year they will determine it again. Um, but they also say within your salary, you probably have a salary increase because every year we have an inflation correction, or at least some of it, some of us will have it. So combined with the salary increase that they are including in the calculation, probably you can borrow more or less the same. But compared to what can you do this year and next year, it is probably something different because salary increase that you can already include before is the salary increase that is already determined and you're going to get it next year in January, for example. Every salary increase, which is unconditionally within 6 months, you can already use in December. So then there will be a difference in the calculation. What is possible next year is for everybody different because in the calculation they say it's depending on the income that you're having. It's depending on do you have a student loan, for example, because they will say, okay, your student loan will be more expensive because the interest rate on the student loan is probably going to increase. In the Netherlands, it was 0.01%, but some people are already paying 2 point something. So that is in the calculation for next year as well, based on the value of the property, based on the ratio, what is the risk gap, stuff like that. And they say, okay, if your income is roughly 60,000 euros gross annually, you can borrow probably 1,000 euros more next year compared to this year. If your income is less than the 60,000 euros, then you can probably borrow a bit more than 1,000 euros in addition next year. But if your salary is increased more than the 60,000 euros, so you're already earning more or it is increased next year, you will borrow less next year. And always difficult to share numbers with you because every situation is different. But if we just check the basics, you do not have a partner, you do not have a student loan or additional loan somewhere else, and you earn 60,000 euros gross. I already mentioned 1,000 euros more next year, rough numbers. But if you're already having a salary of 70,000 euros, so it's already more than the 60, then you can probably borrow 5 to 6,000 euros less in 2025 compared to 2024. So are there big numbers? A different answer for everybody, of course, but compared to the loan that you can already get, it's smaller numbers. But of course, it's also depending on the interest rate, what is going to happen with that. And that is based on market estimations. So this is a big topic in my presentation, I think, because based on this, you are going to determine, am I going to borrow and what is possible. Interest-wise, it is good to understand what are the estimations, and your loan capacity is also based on what is the interest rate. Depending on how many years are you going to fix it, but let's assume that you're going to fix the interest rate for 10 years. The bank is going to make the calculation with the exact interest rate in your contract. So if the interest rate for now is 3.8%, for example, and we expect that the interest rate is going to decrease, your monthly cost will decrease, so your loan capacity will increase. So maybe somewhere in February next year, or maybe it will be the second quarter next year, you can borrow the same amount as what you could have done in 2024, but on a higher interest rate. So that is a good thing. And what is a good thing to keep in mind with determining, are you already going to purchase something or not? And do you want to wait until the interest rate has decreased or increased? Because both are doing something on the purchase price, for example. And let's start with the interest rate because I think that is a big topic. What is going to happen next year? What they mentioned, and with they, I mean the bigger banks, because they always make estimations for the future. And they think, based on what happens at the moment, is that the interest rate is going to decrease a bit further. It already decreased a bit because beginning of this year we were having an interest rate of 4 point something. Now we already have less than 4% in interest. Rough numbers again, of course. They expect that the interest rate is still going to decrease until mid 2025. And of course, the US voted for Trump, which are having a lot of insecurities in Europe as well, because Trump is having big plans. Nobody knows what he is going to work out eventually. But if he is going to tax the import from the US to different companies, it will probably impact the European Union. But if that is a good thing or a bad thing, that nobody knows. But he will start in January, so they expect until mid 2025. Probably the interest rate is going to decrease, and they also estimate that the inflation is more or less 2% mid 2025. And by the end of 2025, they still assume that nothing is going to happen in the European Union with the inflation. So the impact of Trump's plans are not that big. They might think that the interest rate will go down to 1%, 1.5, 1.25 by the central bank. So it's not that the bank is charging you that. And that is a good question. What is the bank going to do? So a couple of decreases by the central bank is still the estimation. When the interest rate is going to decrease, probably the house prices will go up, because the more you can borrow based on your income, the more the competition will be. So that is a good thing for you to already purchase and maybe not fix the interest rate for the longer term, because then you can still use the decrease in interest rate for the next few months, but you can already fix the purchase price maybe. So that is an opportunity. What is an extra thing to keep in mind is, what is the rental market going to do? And I think that will be more challenging in 2025. It already was more challenging in 2024 compared to the years before, because the tax authorities, they changed the rules. And it's not already determined what is going to happen. So the tax authorities, they do not know how it is going to work out. So the landlords also do not know how it is going to work out. A lot of insecurity. So a lot of landlords are saying, okay, we are selling our rental apartment because it doesn't make sense anymore to keep it. It's not a break even thing again, and more risks as well because they changed the law. So that is going to have an impact on your rental price if it is already available to get a rental apartment, because less on the market will drive the price up for the people that are still renting out or renting an apartment, so your rental price. And Probably, if you already have a rental agreement, which is a definite one, so a temporary one, there is a chance that your landlord are not going to extend it because then you're having a permanent one. Then the landlord will say, okay, there is more insecurity for me because you are deciding when to move out, not the landlord. So that is a good thing to keep in mind as well. Last but not least, they also expect to build new houses. And the government is working on it to make it easier to give permits to build new projects, because they say we know that we have a lot of houses that we need to build until 2030. That is the calculation that they make for now, but probably after 2030 we're still short on houses in the Netherlands. So they need to build and build, and then the market for purchase houses or rental houses will be maybe a bit easier, but that is not the estimation for the coming year, but also not for the coming years. So until 2030, they do not estimate that we have enough houses. So keep the new to build projects in mind as well, because probably there will be more available in 2025. Yeah, I think these are the main topics that I wanted to discuss with you. So I think we discussed it briefly. So I also can imagine that you do have some questions for me. So let's check if I can answer them already. If you want to open your mic and do it directly, that's fine. Maybe Anna can open my so raise your hand in that case. But also put your question in the chat and Anna sharing it with me. But there also is a question from Hakan that I already want to answer. And his question is, let's assume that we are currently renting and we and will buy a house in the Netherlands for the first time. The house is a newly started project and will be delivered in 2 years. Okay, it's taking a while, but that is normal with new to build houses. Can we benefit from a tax refund for the interest I paid for the mortgage during this period? Thank you. Yes, you can already do that. With the new to build houses, it's good to keep in mind you're not using the transfer tax exception, because with new to build houses, there isn't an owner already. You are the first owner of the house, so you do not pay the transfer tax at all. Doesn't matter what your age is or that you already used the exception before. If you haven't used it, you can use it for another house. But the financing costs that you're making for the house, because there are some advice fees and you do need to have the mortgage deed with the notary, that is deductible already. And the interest rate that you're paying on your mortgage is also deductible during the construction, so during the 2 years. But in the 2 years, you probably live in the rental house, so you do have double housing costs. Your monthly cost for the mortgage will already start the moment that they will start with building your house. Okay, hopefully your question is answered, Hakan. Let me know if you have an additional thing that I need to answer. But there is an extra question from Alex. And his question is there any distance limit between my job and the house I want to buy with mortgage? And the distance limit, you mean where are you working and where is the house located, I think. And that isn't the case. The house that you're going to purchase, you need to live in it yourself. Otherwise, it is a totally different story. But then the house needs to be within the Netherlands. Then we can apply for a mortgage with a Dutch mortgage provider. And you do not need to work within the Netherlands even. But yeah, you need to be registered in the home and you need to be very often in the home in the Netherlands. And It's easy if your income is in euros, but not necessarily. But if it is in a different currency, it's still possible to purchase a house, but the mortgage providers are limited. They are not all allowing you to have another income because you will pay the mortgage in euros. So there is an extra risk. Okay, there is another question from Catherine. I have a house and I will sell it to buy a new house and move into my new house. I need to pay a transfer tax. Yes, if there is a transfer of the ownership, you need to pay the transfer tax. But if you didn't use the exception, you can still use the exception for the transfer tax. Good to keep in mind, you need to live in the new house that you're going to purchase. And you need to not increase the limit of 525,000 euros for next year. And you cannot be older than 34. So if you already turned 35, then you cannot use the exception anymore. So your first house, it's always a little bit confusing. It needs to be your priority home. I always tell people, and the exception you can use once. That is a thing that is good. Okay, another question is from Sen Gupta. I hope I pronounce your name good. Can you please tell us about the possible transfer taxes and exceptions in 2025 in terms of amount or percentages? Yes, if you do need to pay the transfer tax, it is 2%. That's this year, but also next year. That's not going to be changed. If you're going to live in the house yourself, of course. For this year, it was the 510,000 euros, which is the limit for the purchase price. Next year, it is 525. And keep in mind, your age is very important as well. I think that was your question, but let me know if that wasn't your question, if I understood it not correct. Okay, another question from Olga. We have the purchase contract signed and notary deed signed in January. Need to apply for the mortgage. Do we better fix the interest rate or not? Will the new rules apply? The new rules apply. That's a good question. What is your question? Fixing the interest rate is not depending on when are you going to get the keys. It's also not about transfer tax or that kind of stuff. But okay, I do not understand your question correctly, Olga, but if you're asking me, can I better fix the interest rate already, or do you think that the interest rate might be less in the coming years or months? Yes, I do believe that the interest rate will decrease a bit more in the coming months. If you already need to apply for your I get a thumbs up, so this is your question, I think. But if you already need to apply for the mortgage, you need to make a decision. Please discuss with your advisor what to do about this, because it is a very personal question. Is it better to fix it or not? If you're gambling with the roof on top of your head, if you're not fixing it and the interest rate is going up, then better fix it, because it is a roof on top of your head and a sleepless night is not worth a penny, I think. So interest-wise, I believe it's better to not, because I believe in decrease of interest rate, but I do not have the magic ball. Floating interest rate is a bit higher at the moment, so you will pay a bit more. But if you do have the time to wait and not risking too much, yeah, for now, I should say, please do not fix it for the longer term or not at all. But it is a very personal question. So honestly, I cannot answer already. So please discuss it with your advisor, but keep in mind estimations for next year. Okay, another question from Anna. If I take a mortgage with a floating interest rate, can I fix the rate at any point in time, or are there any limitations on that? Thank you. Depending on the mortgage provider, but more or less with every mortgage provider, you can fix the interest rate anytime. Because it's a floating one, you can say, okay, next month my interest rate will be different because the bank is also saying that. They cannot calculate a loss because they did not know what to charge you after the current month. Only is they are waiting for your call. The bank is not telling you the interest rate might increase or decrease. Please wait a bit longer, or please change the interest rate at this moment. So you need to keep track of the interest rates yourself, and it's your call towards the bank. But yes, you can do it every month. The moment that you have fixed it, it's fixed. And then the question is, are you able to change it again? Okay, there is a last question from Sengupta. Any exceptions applied for people above 35 years age for next year? No, no exceptions, no additional things. What the government did with this is they want to make it easier for first-time home buyers. And they assume, whether it's right or not, that first-time home buyers are younger than 35. Yeah. So no, the transfer tax is with 35 years old. The NHG limit, it doesn't matter what your age is. Okay. Other question from Hakan. I've previously talked to a real estate office about buying a house from a new project. I did not understand if there is an advantage to buy a house from a new project. What are the reasons behind people behavior of buying a house from a new project? As an expert, can share your opinion. Yes, I can share my opinion with you. It's more about what is your wish, because with a new to build house, you can already borrow a bit more based on the energy label that it has. Probably it will have an energy label which is better than A plus. Sometimes it's even 4 pluses. If it is 4 pluses, then you can borrow already 50,000 euros more, because probably your energy bill, the moment that the house is fully built, is significantly less. So that's the reason why they said you can borrow already more in your mortgage, because you can spend more on it based on your income or the energy label. So that is one thing. Downside is you need to wait longer until you can move in. And you do have the double housing cost, because in the meantime, you do need to live somewhere. The monthly cost will not start completely from the start that the constructor is going to start with building your house, because they did not use all of your entire mortgage amount. Because it's depending on the project, of course, but let's say that every 3 months or so, you will get a new invoice from the constructor, because they finished a new phase of the project. So you will purchase the ground from the first moment that you have the meeting with the notary, and later on you will get a bill of 50,000 euros in addition every quarter. Just examples, but just to give you a rough understanding. You're only paying interest over the part that you already used in the mortgage, so not completely. New to build houses, before they always said, okay, now you fix the price. And it probably has increased already the moment that you can move in. So when the constructor is finished, was an additional benefit in your case. And you do not pay the transfer tax at all. So the double housing cost, yes, it's a downside. If you're not using the exception, then yeah, your purchasing costs are less, and you need to invest less from your savings from the start of purchasing. But for everybody, it's a different story. But in my opinion, these are the benefits, so the pros and the cons. Okay, other question from Kate. How much money do you think one should you have set aside for buying process apart from your mortgage. I think you're asking me about the purchasing cost. Depending on the purchase price, depending on your age, because the transfer tax exception is doing a lot. 2% is a lot in the purchasing cost, which you need to contribute yourself the moment that you're going to purchase. What the bank is doing is they are borrowing maximum 100% of the value of the property in mortgage. Above that, they will not do because your house is their security. So the value of the property is very important to them. Other thing that is important in what is necessary in the amount. Do you use a purchase agent? What are the costs that you are making? So what is the fee for the notary? What is the fee for the valuation? What is the fee for your advisor? Stuff like that. But what you can do is the moment that you're going to purchase a house, you're planning on doing that, please prepare yourself and schedule an appointment with an advisor. In the QR code, you're directly on our website to schedule an appointment with us. So please do, and do not hesitate about that, because we're happy to prepare you before you're going to make an offer. And in your specific situation, then we can tell you, okay, what is the amount that you need to contribute yourself. And we can include the estimations for next year already and the rules that we already know that is going to change. So please contact us to be prepared. Okay, there is another question. Since when the government started giving the transfer tax exception? That's a good question. We already had it last year. I'm doubting if it is already 3 years or that we have it for 2 years, but we do not have it for that many years, 2 or 3. But okay, there also isn't an estimation that they are going to cancel it. So for now, it still is there, but they can cancel it. I haven't heard that that is the plan for now. For 2025, they will still have it for the entire year. Okay, there is another question. I think I can still answer 2, 3 questions and then put everything on the mail towards us. If you do have additional questions, use the QR code and we can help you with your specific questions. But the question that I'm going to answer right now is from Armagan. Could you explain the energy label effect on the mortgage? Is there a difference between A or C, for example? Yes, there is a difference with A or C. The moment that your house is having energy label A or B, there isn't a difference between these two. They put 10,000 euros additional in your loan capacity if you haven't had the energy label or not. So the 10,000 euros additional. If the house is having energy label C or D, then they say, okay, your bill is still not that much, but a little bit more than A or B. So we can only add 5,000 euros in your loan capacity. And it will go from 0 to 50,000 euros as a max. And if your house is having the energy label A for pluses, then you can borrow 50,000 euros more. There is another thing to keep in mind with the energy label, because this is just for purchasing the house. The moment that your energy label is worse than C or D, then they will not put anything in your loan capacity for purchasing the house, but then you can use a budget for doing energy efficient improvements. So not use it for purchase it, but improve your house later on. Then they will put it in een bouwdepot, they call in Dutch, or building depot. They will only pay it out the moment that you will share an invoice with them for energy improvements. And with energy label E, for example, you can borrow 20,000 euros more for this. So yes, there is something important with the energy label, not different from 2025 to 2024. It's still the same. Okay, last question from Namidi. We currently have our own house. If we buy a newly built, for how long are we allowed to keep the both houses until we have to sell the old one or change it into a rental property? Yeah, that's a good question. How many years or months is the construction taking? And the moment that you're having a bridge loan, so you already use the profit of your current house, which is still stuck in the bricks, to already purchase the new house, then normally the bank will say, okay, the bridge loan can be there for 2 years max. The moment that the construction of your house is already taking more than 2 years, there are some exceptions because the bank will tell you, okay, it's not reasonable to already sell your house because your new house isn't finished yet. You cannot move in yet. But then it needs to be because of the construction isn't finished yet. And not every bank is doing this. So you need to choose your mortgage provider wisely, discuss it with your advisor again. The moment that you will move out and you still have the existing mortgage and you want to rent it out, then you probably need to ask permission from your current mortgage provider to rent it out, because in the mortgage deed there is a sentence, you do not have permission already. You need to ask it. A lot of mortgage providers are not giving you the permission, so then you need to refinance the moment that you will move out. Otherwise, it needs to be empty. And then, yeah, the monthly cost for the mortgage is still there, and the bridge loan is a big topic. Okay, nice. Good question, Ari, I think. I didn't mention, or I didn't manage to answer all your questions. Put them in the email towards us. You can just use info@anhfinance.nl. But please use the QR. That is our preference, because then we can have in discussion with you by phone, and we can schedule a meeting to have the call, get to know each other a bit more, and then we can discuss all your questions with you and answer all of them. But then we can also answer all your personal questions. Okay, I will make sure that this presentation will be shared with you tomorrow. And let's keep in touch with each other. Let's hope that 2025 will be a good year for you. Okay, enjoy your evening, everybody.